With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Buttkicker, are ready to race.
It's been a few days since drivers revved their engines for the month of June at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was there where Adam Blocker put himself into the record books with his second HyperX Indianapolis 500 victory and one of the most dominating performances in event history. Now, drivers in the Lionheart IndyCar Series will have a new task to survive: the Milwaukee Mile. A track so unforgiving that your line around the track alone could cost you time and positions. This is the Buttkicker 200. Hello everyone and welcome to RaceSpottV's continued coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the luxury ultra comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code LINEHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth today is Lorenzo Bongter. Arjuna Kankipati is in the producer's seat for today's action. TV cameras are provided by Esteban Bello at trackcams22.com. Additional car cameras for RaceSpott's own Tyler Maxson. Live timing and scoring is available through our partners at timing71.org as well. But let's dive straight into our Buttkicker pre-race show as we get ready to go racing at a very historic track, Lorenzo. This track with a long history in motorsports, and today it plays host to IndyCar action.
It plays host to IndyCar action, and it's going to be really interesting. Overtaking will be difficult, so I think there will be some aggression out of those drivers, and we hope here, Justin, we were talking about this prior to the broadcast, that we don't have the infamous 17 cautions that we had in Season 7 that marred this race to be the most infamous race ever in the Lionheart history. So can't wait to see how the action of the track is going to be.
Check that on Season 6 for that regard, but we'll talk a bit about more of that later on, because what we want to focus on is the championship battle. The driver standings presented by Buttkicker. See Adam Blocker at the top of the standings, 581 points, where Connor Harrington, Henry Bennett, Ryan Otis, and Joshua Chin, the top 5. And right now, Blocker, he had a great month of June, to say the very least, Lorenzo, to be able to build up this buffer. Can he keep it going is the big question, more than 100-point gap.
I think the biggest question for Adam Blocker, not only I think having the perfect June season in the Lionheart Series, is can he go 4-peat, because he's the only three-peat in the Lionheart Series. I think we haven't had a 4-peat so far ever in Lionheart history, so he could be the first to break that wall, get in there. But Milwaukee is one of those tracks that he can perform well. He did really good a few seasons ago. He was the pole sitter last season, and he was a runner-up but didn't win it, so he has a good shot here.
And keep in mind that the mark you mentioned there only has been done twice, both by Blocker in series history. Never in this series has there been 4 consecutive victories. The team standings, meanwhile, are interesting because private label Team Hype, they also had a very solid month of June, even with some of the attrition levels coming into play. Drone Motorsports, Red, Graphics LPM, Alcantech Simulations, NHR Esports, Synergy Motorsports, Black round out the top 5. Your thoughts on how things have shaped up for the various teams, especially those top 2 with how close they've gotten?
Yeah, it got really close. I think Adrenaline Red had a really good 500 to summarize at the least, right? Whereas we had some fumbles in the 500 for the private label Team Hype. That's why the gap got a little bit closer to one another. And also there was a few movers like Graphics LPM retook their third spot in the team's championship with a really good running from Tyler Graff in the 500, and he actually climbed up a few spots in the semi. So the scramble right now to the second Triple Crown event is going to be very huge, and I can't wait to see what they will do it.
Can't wait to see how these drivers fare too as we take a look at your rookie standings presented by Buttkicker. Henry Bennett has been the top rookie so far with 432 points, with Jason Brophy, Matt Taylor, Lyle Coisto, Mike Rasmus rounding out the top 5 entering today. And keep in mind, Bennett, Brophy, and Taylor have all shown great speed Lorenzo this campaign. All those competitors are potential favorites for tonight.
All the potential favorites, and what a drive Henry Bennett had in the 500 last time by. Even though he was 7 seconds away from Adam Blocker, he still had a really good performance, and basically was one of the guys that sealed the deal for the Adrenaline Motorsports Red to get closer by on the team standings. Andrew Kinsella had a really good job as well, but this is one of the tracks that Bennett kind of does well. He's not the biggest specialist in short ovals, but I think he can actually ace the one off if he actually gets a really good run out of qualifying.
That's going to be very important track position tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit as these competitors make their way around the racetrack. Now let's take a look at our series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code minus273LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And one thing to emphasize for tonight, it was talked about by drivers all throughout the day today, the custom fix setup with its in-car tools is going to be vital today. This is a track that chews up tires, Lorenzo, and that means the tools are going to be busy as the cars get looser and looser.
Yeah, especially with the one groove part of the track. Basically, all drivers will actually dive down into the inside. Staying on the outside lane usually doesn't fare well for your car. You can save some tires right there, but it's not the line you really want to take for overtaking and really having really good runs. You kind of compromise your pace a little bit. But again, those in-car tools will be working around the clock on a daily because it will be very critical to get those laps right.
Now, you talked about it a little bit, Lorenzo, and we're going to mention here once more. This is home on an unfortunate record, the most cautions across any Lionheart Series race. The hashtag, remember the 17, from Season 6. As some drivers will describe to you, that was a race that all those competitors are surely to remember. I don't expect that to be the case today, caution-wise, Lorenzo, but this is a track for attrition.
Yeah, this is a track for attrition. I think we had more turnabouts than a Mexican or Brazilian telenovela in the Season 6 17 caution race. But I hope with the grid that we have right now, it's going to be a really clean running for the 200 laps. There's only 26 cars at the moment. So far, I think we are really set for a really good race around the Milwaukee Mile.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the Milwaukee Mile. This is a 1 mile facility located at Wisconsin State Fair Park, with grandstands featuring seating for approximately 35,000 fans, the oldest operating motor speedway in the world, hosting at least one auto race every year since 1903. An incredible racetrack here at this facility, Lorenzo. It's impressive, to say the very least, the history at the circuit.
It's in the historic circuit. It is one of my favorite circuits to run on, even though it is a very hard circuit for you to get it right and be very consistent and constant in it. But it's one of those tracks that is a driver track instead of, being more of a spectacle track than anything else. So you really get the enjoyment out of the circus the more you actually are in it.
The drivers are now wrapping up practice at the moment. The quickest driver in session, Adam Blocker at 22.199, followed by Matt Taylor, Chris Fowler, along with Andrew Kinsella and Henry Bennett, the top 5. Fairly close on the board as well. The separation amongst those drivers, about 2.5 tenths, which means the speeds are likely going to be very big here, and the track temps very cool as well, because it's a cloudy one here for this one, mostly cloudy. 23 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees is the track temperature at 50% humidity in sim day is iRacing Day, May 15th, 2021. But with that, Lorenzo, it's time to get ready for qualifying. And this is going to be an exciting session to see how this is going to be, because drivers have described this track as the trickiest track outside of Indianapolis on the calendar.
Yeah, because you really need to find your line right. If you actually attack the corners properly, you guys basically gonna see the drivers basically hitting the apron nearly into their fast lap. So it's gonna be tricky and key to get that positioning in the track, and that run out of the pit lane to start your first fast lap is gonna be key for you to actually set the tone for your second fast lap.
And drivers off and away for the start of qualifying. That is Joshua Chin now. You see passing on by the private label team Hype Machine. And talk us through the best way to get yourself to that optimal line, because that's going to be very critical for a 1/10 of a second difference minimum in qualifying.
I think, in my opinion, you kind of strike like Chin, who's going to try to do it.
He just hit the wall, and now he'll have to likely reset as a result. A major mistake to start off his qualifying run. And it should be worth noting that these cars are very on edge for tonight.
Yeah, he cannot make any single mistake. What you have to do is kind of like run into inside line in the entire time, attack it very aggressively. But the thing is, once you attack aggressively, you kind of need to maintain the speed and the control out of your car into turn number 1 and 2, which is the one Matt Taylor was doing right there, and then try to carry his most speed and nearly touching the wall on the outside, heading into 3 and 4.
Following along with Henry Bennett now as he tries to move from a 23-1 the first time. It's a 22.5. That is only 6th best out of a grand total of about 8 competitors who have set times so far. But one of the drivers expect to be a favorite for this poll, Adam Blocker. He's someone that, as talked about, has had lots of experience the past few races and is looking to add to his repertoire of victories. Never went here at this racetrack, though. He was a runner-up, though, in Season 7 here.
Yeah, he was a runner-up in Season 7, and I can't wait to see what Blocker does, the championship leader in the standings. Looking aggressive, not trying to attack way too much. Now he goes into the curbing on the inside of the pit lane, on the outside part of the pit lane, going for a really good run on the outside wall. Now going for that inside attack, and looks like the lap will be right around Ryan Otis' time, I believe.
Ryan Otis' time at 22.211. It's only a 22.274 for Blocker, so only second quickest. Still several drivers on the racetrack continuing to get their tires ready to go. It's Andrew Kinsella, who is now off and away as well. He's done a lot of work when it comes to the building. It's been talked about where he's put in a lot of laps to make sure he never gets loose or ends up getting too tight or has any sort of handling issues. This qualifying run, though, not looking good to start.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually trying to set himself up for the second lap, not going aggressive on the tires, staying on that middle line, trying to maximize the rubber on the right side of the tire, right side of the car. Let's see how he will do it on the second lap.
22.778 puts him 16th quickest for the time being. The other drivers on track currently, Jason Galvin, Ricky Hart, and the rest of the drivers currently waiting things out on track. May not have enough time to get onto the circuit. But it's a 22.28. Good enough for third. Right in front of one driver to keep an eye on, Mike Rigney, who has a 22.303 for fourth best. And here is Ricky Harding in particular. He had some good momentum in Indianapolis, just didn't have the luck though. He's the last of the drivers on the board, a 22.9 out of 19 drivers who have set times. So take this towards your direction, Lorenzo, real quick. Your expectations for tonight.
There will be some attrition, I think, on the very first few laps. You know, they're going to try to find the rhythm. They will be aggressive, trying to make those overtakes. I think restarts and the start will be the primary points of the race for you to make those overtakes. Other than that, it will come down to the tire drop-off. Other than that, I can't wait to see. It's going to be a very exciting race. One thing we have to talk later, though, will be the strategy, because I think will be key here in this race.
Strategy is going to be very critical. Being patient is going to be critical. Avoiding potential attrition is going to be important. All of that is going to be critical and important to make sure you manage as drivers for tonight. But speaking of those drivers, they have now wrapped up their qualifying session as we get ready to take a look at how they'll start tonight. Your starting grid presented by Buttkicker. It's Ryan Otis who sets the pole time in the 22.2s alongside Adam Blocker. Andrew Kinsella and Mike Rigney will start in row 2 with Tony Shelton and Matt Taylor rounding out your top 6. Aaron Morgan and Stephen Larkamp will start in 7th and 8th with Brian Beard and Tyra Graff rounding out the top 10. Connor Harrington starts in 11th alongside his teammate Jason Brophy from private label Team Hype, with Chris Fowler and Joshua Chin to the middle of the pack in 14th. Henry Bennett and Matt Houston will start 15th and 16th, with Jason Galvin and Joe Branch 17th and 18th. The last drivers to take times on the board, Ricky Harding, he's 7/10 off the pole in 19th, and the first driver without a time, Mike Rasmus. Lyle Calisto and Luis Gonzalez Nunez 21st, 22nd, with Adam Frazier, Samuel Ryman 23rd and 24th. Rounding out your field tonight, Brian Carey and Richie Hearn among your 26 cars who have made it to the Milwaukee Mile for tonight's action. And as these competitors continue to rumble their way onto the racetrack, let's take a look at our cameras for tonight, starting with the HyperX onboard camera. With Aaron Morgan, whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Tonight, with the Buttkicker on board, it's Mike Rigney. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com. With Chris Fowler Racing on board, it's Chris Fowler. Join Chris Fowler on his sim racing journey through his live streams. Visit Fowler Racing on Twitch. And with the Espo Designs on board, it's Adam Blocker. Get yourself a racing identity. And the iRacing Pace Truck now rolls for the first time tonight. Your keys to victory tonight, Lorenzo.
I think for everybody, we'll, try to conserve the tires as best as you can. This track is a tire killer, like you said. I think for most importantly, though, we have to keep an eye on everybody from the private label Team Hype. I think this is the worst qualifying we've seen from them in the past 5 races. So I think there will be some aggressiveness out of Connor Harrington, Jason Brophy, and Joshua should try to move up in the field and try to stack themselves up against Adam Blocker, because they need a good running in this race over here to keep that team standings within out of reach out of the Adrenaline and Motorsports Red team.
Keep in mind the team championship as well, with Kerry starting at the end for Adrenaline Red with penalties. That's going to be something to keep in mind for tonight as well. But on that note, competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the 2021 edition of the Buttkicker 200 at the Milwaukee Mile. We're underway from the Milwaukee Mile. And a great start for Ryan Otis, already clear by a few car lengths. Adam Blocker running away with the pack with him by more than 5 car lengths to jump the rest of the pack, trying to dive their way to the bottom. Nice clean start from our competitors, but already the battle for the race lead starting to heat up as Ryan Otis getting pressurized by Adam Blocker from behind. Blocker trying to keep wheel to wheel. See what he does as he goes a little bit deeper, forcing Otis up an extra groove.
Nice one from Blocker.
Side by side for the race lead at the stripe. That time by, it was Otis with the credit for the lead lap by no tenths of a second. Blocker, though, gets clear, and Blocker to the race lead.
Really good move from Blocker, getting the opportunistic, pressure move on Otis, and he actually yielded. And now Otis is going to be on the back. And the thing is, how Blocker will navigate towards opening the gap against Otis and the rest of the field is going to be really key to see.
Keep in mind, Ryan Otis, that was his first pole of the season and was able to lead a couple laps, but the battle for 10th position starting to get a little bit busy. This is in the midst of some dirty air as Tower Graf trying to run the middle of that seam in 3 and 4. Connor Harrington trying to find cleaner air up in the higher groove.
And now Brophy on the outside looking for an overtake on Jason Galvin, and probably the private label team Hype will be able to do it. Now moving up one spot.
And the patience is going to be having to be tested here as Chin dives to the inside of Galvin, because it's not easy to make the moves. You need to know what to adjust on the car with the in-car tools, but as well, you need to be prepared in case things get out of hand. For Chin, this is now forced to side by side where he can't clear by Galvin.
Yeah, and I think the moves will be done, especially when the tires are still trying to build up the heat. They're still not on prime heat levels. I think they will be right on the next lap or so, where the overtakes will be a little bit more difficult than usual. But still, the aggression is pretty much noticeable, and is what we expected to see out of the private label team Hype drivers. Try to move up and be closer towards Adam Blocker and Kinsella and the rest of the guys in the front pack.
Going to be critical that they have to gain some track position in this race, and as we are already getting to the early stages of tonight's action, let's talk a little bit about how some of these fare out for terms of strategy. We fall on board with Chris Fowler as these competitors tonight are essentially going to have about a 3-stopper. But the thing is, when it comes to the strategy, it's going to be critical if you want to jump ahead of packs such as this.
Yeah, because our pit window, the first pit window, will start right about lap 35. We'll go up to lap 55. They might stretch it out maybe 2 to 3 laps, depending on how conservative they will be with their pit stop, with their fuel gauge. Other than that, lap 90 to 110 is the second one, and then 145 to 165 will be your final pit stop. That is actually programmed for you to make the 200 laps in this race. It's going to be an interesting how conservative they want to be, pushing that right foot pedal into the IR18 to try to make those overtakes and waste the fuel in it.
Take a look from the back end of Chin as the traffic's starting to build up. Galvin slipping back a little bit from his initial charge forward. It's only a +2 now for him. Pressure from behind from Henry Bennett. You talked about how you liked Bennett in his performance at Indianapolis last month. A lot of experience on the sim, likes to race at Indianapolis. Seen him race there plenty of times. Meanwhile, speaking of racing, Tower Graf races his way up tonight's position.
And you can see Connor Harrington on the inside of Sifu Camp now being overtaken on turn number 1, taking that outside line. Might be overtaken by another two drivers, Fowler and Chin as well.
It just seems like if you want to make the move, it needs to be inside turn 3 to set it up. Do you think that's going to be the trend for tonight? Because we've seen that a couple times now.
I think it will. You apply the pressure into turn number 3. The car in front might yield, especially with the aero wash effect. You're gonna get into the exit of turn number 3 and 4, and then into 1. It's an interesting one for me because you have basically 2 lines. The normal line would be basically trying to hit the curbing on the pit lane, on the exit of the pit lane, for you to actually maximize the speed. But you can actually run on the outside a little bit above that, but still within the first line for you to actually get a good running in it.
Near close contact as Lorkamp scrapes the wall. Bit dangerous there as Brophy now makes it side by side. Henry Bennett also side by side with Galvin for position. 2x2 goes back to 1x1 by 2.
Larkham dropping like a rock on the standings. Near contact now between him and Galvin.
Very dicey down the back straightaway as now Larkamp has already lost himself with this move coming from Bennett. 8 positions. And what's going through your mind as a driver if you're going backwards this quickly?
Unless you have a mindset of trying to conserve fuel and tires, you really don't want to run aggressively in the start of your stint. I think you should be slightly concerned, but then again, we're not driving, we're actually commentating, so we cannot pick their brains. I'm trying to do my best to pick their brains this early on in the race, as we're seeing now Matt Houston trying to go for a move on the outside of, I think that's Lionel Calisto on the inside.
And keep in mind, a couple of the drivers who were chatting about this today on the series' Discord mentioned this, were drivers like the looseness in some cases in the corner entry. In particular, Matt Taylor's a good example of that. To be able to run away and be able to have grip, sometimes that's where the handling comes into play. One driver seems to be really handling the clean air the most, meanwhile, in the track itself in the set seems to be Blocker. He's nearly pulled away by almost 2 seconds.
Yeah, his consistency around the track is just something really scary. I think he hasn't dropped a beat from the 23 lows, whereas Oda has been on the 23 mids to 23 lows, not putting anywhere the rhythm as Blocker is actually putting, even though they are his own clean air as well. But Oda's doing really well so far. I think this is the best start of the season, as you were saying, first pole in the season, and so far first time in the top 3 in the season as well.
Of course, the Lionheart Retro Series champion Ryan Otis. As we look back at the gaggle, that continues to be where the private label team Hype Machines are fighting. This involves Harrington and Chin trying to charge together and work together and bring Brophy with them. And this teamwork seems to be playing well for them so far. But one driver opens up the door, the next one follows on through, then the next one follows on through after that if they can.
It looks like a domino effect of sorts, ain't it?
Just about.
It's interesting, but then again, they need a track position because Kinsella is right in front. Even though Bennett is in P15 so far, the big breaker is Kinsella is in P4. So having Kinsella up in the top 5 and looking at the team standings for now and where Adrenaline Motorsports Rad is gunning for the end of the season, I think they need to be more aggressive and try to make up those spots on the field.
Absolutely, and going back to the domino mentioning, the main thought process is you start off with the tiniest domino and have a bigger one, then a bigger one, and so forth, all stacked up together till you knock down that little domino, and that's where the domino effect comes into play. It's going to be interesting if that ends up being that case. Brumfleet right now cannot seem to get the run he needs to get on by this machine and Chris Fowler in front.
And another team that actually needs good positioning here, if we're to talk about team standing as well, is Alcantech and HR Esports, because they didn't have a very promising 500. I think Tyler Graff basically carried the Graphics LPM team into the top 3 of the team standings with his 5th place in the 500. So I think Fowler, Larkamp, and everybody else in the team, I think they need to pick up the pace a little bit. Even though they might be saving some fuel and tires at this first portion of the race, I think there has to be a yellow light in the teams, like in terms of team standings, if we are to compare against the Graphics LPM drivers.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, not the absolute thing Chris Fowler may have wanted to have happen. A couple drivers making a pass underneath. Once again, it was both Galvin and Brophy who move on by, so move the private label team Hype Machines in a line 10 through 12. Fowler dropping back now to 14th position on the racetrack.
Yeah, and one interesting thing about Galvin, though, is interesting for us to see him not outside of the top 10, because he's tall. He's second place with most lead laps in this field, and I think he's the only one of the 2 drivers with chances to win aside Joe Branch. But Joe, unfortunately, is not in this grid, so he's the only driver with a chance to go for 2-time wins here at the Milwaukee Mile. But looking patient so far, not going for aggressive moves, looking only for those breaches and try to move up in the field for 4 spots up for the number 42 car so far.
One of the bigger movers as we take a look at the times for Blocker and look at how consistent and quick these times are. A lot of green, some yellow mixed in here and there, yes, but he has consistently been hitting near on top of the same marks. He's going to eventually reach lap traffic, keep in mind. But Blocker is putting on a blistering pace right now, Lorenzo.
He's destroying the field so far. What a performance from Adam Blocker. I think he found himself with the IR18. We know how strong he is. We know he's the defending champion, but this performance he's putting is just something out of this world so far. It's like giving Otis no chance to catch up, Ridgely as well, and he's about, I would say, 2 to 3 seconds to catch up the first guy in the field, which is Ricky Harden, which is the last place so far.
Just taking a look at that motion with the Espo Designs on board for the moment as some more battles continue to fare out. Henry Bennett currently shuffled back to 16th with Lyle Kalisto in front. You can tell these drivers just searching for the clean air still, which is going to be very critical to be able to sweep around on this racetrack. See from the onboard just how difficult the aero wash can be, and keep in mind it's a major factor here on the short tracks especially.
Yeah, because you can get so much understeer, especially with this shallow bankings that we have, the Milwaukee Mile. We barely have like 2-3 degrees, and they actually are, you know, improving as you go into the higher part of the bank. I think you go up to 5 degrees in the banking. Those shallow bankings help nothing whatsoever for you to actually get some good runs. So it's a tricky thing for you to get the car right and the positioning right of the car for you to get those good runs out on the inside line or the outside line on the Milwaukee Mile. So positioning yourself in the turn, especially a turn in, is essential for you to get a good run.
Taking a look now at the battle going on for second position, and Mike Rigney is closing in on Ryan Otis. Tyra Graff had mentioned on social media before tonight's race that Rigney has been fast all week. To look out for him tonight, we're seeing why. He was the quickest in one of the final practice sessions of the evening, on par with Blocker in terms of hot lap pace.
Yeah, his pace is looking really good. 23 in middles, like 23 5s to 4s has been his consistency so far. But being marginally better than what Brian Otis is doing. So Rigney actually has a really good shot of catching Otis, I think in about maybe 5 laps or so, and then 10 for that P2 spot out of the number 95 car.
Take a look at our driver who's had some great speed as well. Matt Taylor has been very impressive. He's right now in the battle for 4th position. Onto the rumble strips that time, nearly snapped around, but Taylor's been somebody who has impressed in every type of car. He's competed in Lionheart competition this season as well. Very consistent, and is somebody that is still looking for victory in this series.
Still looking for a victory. Failed short of getting that top 5 because Tyler Graff actually had the better tires in the Indy 500. But what a season Taylor's been doing so far. The Alcantech, he's the primary Alcantech simulations and HR esports driver in the standings. He stands P8 so far. So what a season that Matt Taylor is having so far.
Keep in mind, in the Lionheart Retro Series was 2nd at Sonoma just last week. So somebody that's good on the ovals and the road courses, which is a very tough combination to be able to master both. Meanwhile, it should be worth noting that the race leader has reached traffic. Adam Blocker has now gone into the back end of the train, and it's going to start getting very thick. Speaking of drivers getting thick and heavy, the battle for second, thick and heavy. Mike Rigney clear, as now he is going to have to try and pull away with lap traffic ahead.
Yeah, that's Richie Hearn right in front of him. So even though they are catching a real-life driver when Richie Hearn, and unfortunately, this is one of the interesting facts. Richie never, I was looking over here, Richie never ran Milwaukee, but you can see taking the outside line, giving room for both Otis and Rigney to go by, but I think Otis got a little bit blocked off with the outside line going out of turn number 2 and loss of a bit of time to Rigney.
Yeah, that hurt him at that time. As now, this is where it's going to get intriguing, is how the fast traffic handles the lap cars. Some of them are going to want to fight tooth and nail to try and stay on the lead lap. As we follow on with Adam Block with the Espo Designs onboard camera, you can see how busy it's starting to get just in front of him a couple rows.
And car gets a little bit wobbly out of the exit of turn number 4. The first car in front of him is Ricky Harden. He has a 3-car battle in front of him, which is Ricky Harden, Samuel Ryman, and Joe Branch. Actually, Joe's not having the best run so far, but can get back there with strategy alone.
Here's the true test too. Can Blocker gain himself time despite the traffic? He's already lost himself about a second and a half, just about trying to pass by the 1 car.
It's tricky. It depends on positioning, in my opinion, you know, especially at these short tracks, because you need to avoid the aero wash as best as you can. As I think we're having Joshua Chin managing to move up 1 spot on Tyler Graff, but Tyler is trying to fight back on the inside of turn number 3.
And here's the gamble too. We're approaching that first pit window. You lose a lap and a half, Lorenzo, if you duck down. Do you risk pitting under green is going to be the big question here. There's a strong undercut, yes, but you risk losing a lot of time if a caution comes out.
And look it's tricky, you know, and I know the undercut is really good, but I think if you really want to go for the undercut, I think you might have to pit around lap 50 or something like that, but you risk having 5 laps more with worn out tires than everybody else in the grading if they go for those ladder pits. But so far we haven't had a single yellow flag, even though the attrition in the track has been quite high, but Graff right now dropping like a rock as well.
Have to wonder if those tires might be starting to go off. Drivers are reaching the very limits of the numbers available and getting your puncture range in testing for this week. And you don't want to blow a tire in these types of cars, let's put it that way. It's also was talked about where if you turn too much of the wheel too, you can actually burn up the right front, Lorenzo, and make it very tight for you. And it looks like Graff is starting to get very tight off these corners. He's now indicating he wants to pit.
Yeah, he needs to pit. The car is really underperforming so far. I think again, you stay under the draft so long in this race, and you try to be aggressive and try to make up the grounds every single lap. And one thing about this track, though, is that the pit entry is one of the most tricky pit entries for you to make, because it is on the inside line on the front straight. It is a very, very slow pit entry. You kind of have to commit on the inside line of turn number 4 and stay on the inside line and then brake immediately so you can make the very slow speed pit entry in the Milwaukee Mile.
He ended up staying out a couple more times now as we take a look at the battle going on. Second on back, Ricky, Taylor, Otis, and Kinsella now amongst this grouping. Drivers keeping line astern. Keep in mind Otis trying to hold on to positions. Bobbles that time off the corner.
Yeah, and I think it got problematic for Otis as he got into traffic right now, and that's why allowed Matt Taylor, and probably going to have our first pit stops in the day, because I can see Chin in the pit lane, and I saw Luis Gonzalez Nunez saying he's coming into pit lane too.
So the undercut call coming into play now. So our first pit stops of the day. Now in sequence, the fall off so far more than a second. Started off in the 22.5s and 6s. They've dropped off to the 23.8s, some competitors. Kinsella into the pit box. Tyler Graff, he's also come down to the pit lane for his respective service. And now it's going to be the true test. Will it stay green? And will these drivers be able to stay on the lead lap? It's going to be the big question after losing this 1.5 laps in the sequence. Because you get a caution flag, it ends up becoming Yahtzee for you.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit chaotic right now with everybody pitting in, and it's a different laps where some drivers already like one lap down or are in the traffic to get lapped down. So as we see Kinsella, one of these drivers actually came out of the pit. He's the first driver who actually had the really good pit stop and is now 20th second. We'll climb up these spots eventually as other drivers are due to come to the pit lane in a little bit.
Morgan and Fowler came into the pit lane this time by for their respective service. What a season it's been for Aaron Morgan as well. Fairly impressive in terms of his speed and numbers. He's also watching this along with Chris Fowler off and away. 8.6 for Morgan. He's off in onto the access road. And drivers need to be careful of this access road with how close it is to the racing line itself here. You make one slip up, you not only risk a blue cone penalty, but you risk potential contact on that pit exit.
Yeah, you risk a whole lot of contact in the pit exit, and he nearly got close right now. I think that is Jason Brophy that he nearly got close with it. But now, right behind him, you can see Joshua Chin, which are already pitted, going on the hunt of Aaron Morgan. A driver that we just talked about, really impressive based on the
Trouble
road
turn two,
courses.
Chris Fowler into the outside wall. Caution is out. And that changes the strategy. And another car around on the front stretch too.
Oh, Lord.
Matt Taylor was the car on the front stretch who also had an incident as he tried to, I believe, try and make sure he can come back onto the racetrack without pitting. All while one more driver snapped around in the middle of 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You're going to see him basically changing the lane at the last second and actually hit those barrier protections, those water barrier protections, and basically blew the tire, the left front out. Suspension damage and wing is broken as well for the Kentucky Char driver. Unfortunate.
And keep in mind, the reason for the caution, I believe, was Chris Fowler. You see right here, realizes that they might be getting a pit road closed warning, crashes into the barrels. Chris Fowler and Matt Taylor both are now off the racetrack. Let's see, this is what happened with Fowler, keep in mind. You see that bobble with the rumble strip? Sideways, right up to the outside wall, broke his suspension.
Right in front of Graf, looks like it.
Yes, indeed. Tower Graf, you see the onboard.
That's a close call. The close call is an understatement right here.
And now this caution flag period really shakes up some of the drivers' strategies. This now puts drivers like Chin into a box, Adam Frazier, Joe Branch, Richie Hearn, Jason Galvin, Tower Graf, Matt Houston, Mike Rasmus, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Stephen Larkamp all lost a lap during the sequence, either for pit stops or being lapped by the race leader Adam Blocker prior to that caution flag. So keep in mind, Samuel Ryman also is yet to pit as well on the circuit. He and Joe Branch have to come down for service, potentially still. But it's currently Blocker who is scored up at the very front of the field.
Yeah, he came in just as the yellow flag came out, so he got lucky right there. The number one driver, I think him, Rigney, Otis, I think got lucky as well. As soon as the yellow flag came out, they're already into the pit lane, so I think no penalties will be issued for them. But Ryman, what a charge so far. You know, saving fuel, I know he has to come down to the pit lane, but coming from all the way back third to last, and so far P3 in this outing.
Been an intriguing night so far, indeed. As we roll underneath the right behind, I should say, the iRacing pace truck. Worth noting as well that Ricky Harden, Andrew Kinsella, Aaron Morgan, Adam Frazier, Joshua Chin, Joe Branch, Jason Galvin are all lined up in front of Blocker. They'll be able to be scored on the lead lap once we get back racing here. Everyone behind Blocker, which includes drivers like Graf, Houston, Mike Rasmus, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, they'll be potentially used as picks here for this upcoming restart.
And it will be a cluster start to say the least, right? And we were talking restarts here because the tire is still cold. You're trying to build up that heat. Will be really good. You can attack for about 6-7 laps. Of course, you're going to be brushing off the tires. Will be wasted. So it's going to be really interesting this first restart out of the race.
Samuel Ryman has come down for his service this time with the lights now out on top of the iRacing pace truck. To reset your field, it's Blocker, Rigney, Otis, Schoen, Harrington, Beard, Brophy, Callisto, Bennett, Carey, your top 10. Brian Carey up 15 positions. iRacing pace truck is off. Green flag is up. We're backing away from the Milwaukee Mile. A nice clean launch again from Blocker, already pulling away by 3-4 car lengths. Well, Tyler Graf changes up his line under attack for the Buttkicker on board, Mike Rigney.
Yeah, and then Connor Neely, I was looking, I think we might have a second yellow here.
Oh, and a couple cars indeed to the outside wall. No caution yet. Now we get it. More cars slam up into the fence. Henry Bennett among the drivers involved. Connor Harrington, Aaron Morgan, and several others as we're back under yellow.
I think Jason Brophy nearly got into it as well, looking at it. I think he was the first guy who got into contact with Connor Harrington. You guys can see now, car gets a little bit loose on the entry. I think the adjustments actually were a little bit playing in part over here, and Brophy managed to get away with it just barely.
And this has massive implications for the team standings, keep in mind, Lorenzo, because you've got Private Label, Team Hype, and Adrenaline Motorsports red competitors involved in this one. Unbelievable is the first thing that comes to mind.
It's just downrightly insane. You can see now Aaron Morgan being another one of those cars involved. I think that is him getting involved. I want to say maybe Lionel Callisto, but I cannot say 100% with certainty. But 4 or 5 cars involved in this, and especially in the team standings, the door has kind of opened for Adrenaline Motorsports here, right here on the track.
That car you were talking about is Ricky Harden, by the way, who is carrying his rear wing across the racetrack. As several competitors coming down. Brophy, Kinsella, Chin, and as to be expected, Harden with that back wing damage, all coming down during the sequence here for this racetrack. But that takes a lot of big names out of the race, and now really shakes up the complexion of the championship, as talked about a little bit. Now, how do you try and approach this now that we're getting towards the restart conundrum almost?
I think they know by now that with these cold tires and how the in-car adjustments are actually playing out, they might be a little bit more conservative at this first portion, at this second restart. But for now, I think, again, opens up the door. I think there is a possibility for all contact to actually move up the standings over here if they actually get some really good positions on the track. That's the prime opportunity for them, because I think Graf got involved into this. Nearly got involved into this, but prime opportunities over here for the team's points. So can't wait to see how the restart will pan out.
Keep in mind that Graf is still a lap down. He needs to find a way around Blocker to get back in the lead lap. 14 cars are on the lead lap. So that's still a pick between Blocker and Rigney. And for Rigney, it's going to be the true test to see, can he battle with the others as more drivers continue on with their service down to the pit lane. Richie Hernals are coming down. A lot of these drivers taking some extra service time. Some of the errors going an extra 4.3, 4.6 seconds that time in sequence.
Yeah.
And here's the question. Do you think they can try and stretch it on the gas as the major mark? Because we talked about the range expected to be 55 laps projected. Do you think if there's enough cautions you can try and save and cut out an extra stop here? Or if that makes sense.
If we get, I hope. All right, Justin. If this happens, you can say I kind of jinxed it or called it. But if we get about 5 or 6 cautions in this race, maybe, and I mean maybe, you can actually think about maybe saving a pit stop right here.
We'll see if the commentator's curse rings true for that. After all, commentator's curses apparently have been handed out like candy the past few weeks or so.
True. that is a true that we wish this was a lie.
With that, these drivers ready to go. Adam Blocker, Mike Rigney, Ryan Otis, Tony Shalwin, Lionel Kalisto, Brian Beard, Brian Carey, Adam Frazier, Joshua Chin, and Jason Galvin, your top 10, with just 14 competitors on the lead lap. iRacing pace truck is off. A later start this time for the green flag, and Graf thought about a move to the outside. He ducks low to the inside. Rigney with a good launch, trying to power move his way outside of the lap car.
And now, if you're Graf, do you go for that overtake on Blocker, try to get your lap back? But then again, you kind of set a little bit of a danger parameter over here for Rigney not to get closer, and attrition can happen right here. Because if I'm Graf, I stay on the track as max as I can, try to ride the car out of Adam Blocker, hope for a yellow flag so you can actually get your lap back just on the cautions itself.
Yeah, this is going to be a critical time to be able to try and get that lap, but you also don't want to be the significant factor of hurting somebody's race. All that has to play through your mind as drivers. By the way, it's worth noting Connor Harrington among the drivers who were involved in the last incident, 5 laps down, back on track. As we take a look at the track map, I should rather say in the right-hand corner of your screen, a lot of traffic making its way down the front straightaway. A few drivers in the pit lane.
Yeah, we have about 3 drivers in the pit lane. Larkamp, Morgan, and Bennett still trying to get their cars repaired. And meanwhile, really good battle here between Tony Shalwin for 4th place. Lionel Kalisto, Brian Beer, and Brian Carey with a really good recovery race so far, coming from P25 all the way up to P7 so far.
Don't forget, there's a lot of traffic that is mixed in with all these lead lap cars here, so that's going to be a potential factor. Brian Beard, meanwhile, trying to battle for a top 5 position. Looking to build up the run on Tony Shalwin, who gives him a bit of space to the inside this time. Not enough, though, to be able to make the dive.
And navigate with this traffic itself is so complicated because you want to find the right line, and the other driver actually is giving you a little bit of a draft on the front straight, on the back straight, which gains you those marginal advantages. So we can actually see some, and one of the things we saw over here, big movers in the pit stop as Chin moved up 1 spot and managed to overtake Brian Carey. I think that's Adam Frazier applying the pressure on turn number 1.
Good recovery for Chin after losing all the track position he had picked up previously for pitting under green. Only before the first caution flag of the day. Biggest mover overall currently is Brian Carey, plus 17, who started at the very back of the field. Still, though, some of the battles still shaping up with Chin continuing his charge through the pack. He makes the move to the inside, move Chin to 6th.
Well, he has better tires than everybody. 6th lap in terms of tires, better than everybody else. I think he came with Jason Brophy in the pit lane for possible fuel window strategy. So interesting to see the King of Chins move up in the field and regaining 7 spots, 8 spots so far in this gridding.
Looking nice and smooth on that. Lionel Kalisto continuing his charge on forward. Impressive race from Kalisto, who does not have a top 5 this season. Lino just not giving up easily, though, on this position. And
Shalwin was slowly lurking right behind Kalisto. He added the better lap out of the 3 cars. So we can actually see a 3-car battle in this one if Tony Shalwin really wanted to push that car out of the number 31 in P5.
Meanwhile, up at the front, Adam Blocker is gone. And the gap is even bigger than it was before. By more than 2.5 seconds at this point of the run. Rigney having all the dirty air fed his direction is the downside of running behind Tyler Graff right now, but there's not much else he can do with the clean air. Seeing Bunker continue to pull off and away on this track. You can make it work in dirty air, though.
Yeah.
Chin is a good example of that.
And Chin is working that tire out to the very brim of it. You know, he has better tires than everybody. Went for that pit stop. 6 laps it doesn't look like a huge difference on paper because it's 6 laps. But trust me, in this track, 6 laps is an abysmal difference in terms of grip. So you can actually maximize the running out of the tires. And Chin being consistently fast in it, he's basically doing 23 lows, like 1.2, 1.2. And he's the only driver who kind of puts Adam Blocker in a very honest position in terms of pacer over here.
Looking back once more at the battle for 8th position on screen, and absolutely agree with you in that regard. While the pressure when it comes to drivers so very vital to be able to help with the self-improvement, so we'll have a goal to chase after.
Yeah, and I think kind of falls down into Chin to, you know, represent the private label team hype, you know, machine, and applying the pressure as best as you can to try to steal as most points you can get out of Adam Blocker. But then again, it's a complicated job, you know, how with seeing how Blocker has been really good so this season so far, as we're seeing Kinsella trying to catch up to Jason Galvin, but Jason managed to move up 1 spot over here on the hunt now of Adam Frazier and Brian Carey.
And Frazier looking to get fully clear, can't. Brian Carey still utilizing that high line. Keep in mind that there are a mixture of adrenaline red cars in all of this in Kinsella and Brian Carey. Well, Brian Carey was talked about a little bit earlier, EOL from the Indianapolis 500 from earlier on this season from last month, for implications where Carey had been involved in that first lap incident that happened to start off the race.
Now, which was really unfortunate. Everybody knew that Brian had the pace in the 500, but you know, it's one of those things that happens, you know, from time to time. And seeing Brian Carey claw himself all the way down from the back and contend for a top 10 spot at this far in the race. Really good outing from the Adrenaline Motorsports Red. And then again, positioning the team standings right now is also key, because for now, Adrenaline Motorsports Red clawing themselves closer and closer, getting themselves closer and closer in terms of points towards the private label team hype.
All those points very valuable for a championship hunt. Now, Kinsella poking to the inside, not able to get it moved to the inside. Carey this time, though, gives him a lot of space. And it looks like Kinsella, given the space to go on through, Kinsella seems to be on the pace as the long run starts to settle in.
Yeah, I think of Kinsella managing to find a little bit of a groove over here. The laps have been right around the 25 middles, 25.5, 0.6. Andrew Kinsella are basically right on the same margin as Galvin, but Galvin has been on the last lap faster than both drivers at P11 and P12. P10 and P11, correction.
Here's the separation, by the way. You can see on the track map, the one machine, a blocker, the 00 behind Tyler Graff. Mike Rigney in the 00. You can see how big the gap is growing and growing on the racetrack. That is amounting to more than 3.5 seconds differential to Rigney, who's having his best run of the season since Worldwide Technology Raceway on June the 2nd. That was where he finished 7th in that race.
And just insane what Blocker has been doing on the field. It's basically schooling everybody how to run into these short ovals and getting the best performance out of it. As you see now, Rigney, that is probably lapping Tyler Graff on turn number 2.
And now it's the true test. Can he close up the gap in a hot lap speed? The downside again is the damage is done. It's 4.5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult to close that up without some strategy coming into play, possibly Lorenzo.
I agree. I think you require a yellow flag or some nefarious tactics for you to actually move up in the field and try to contend that P1 out of Blocker. But I think for Rigney so far, I'm satisfied with P2 and how the car has been running so far with all this attrition. So no complaints so far for that number, for the 00 car in the field.
Great on that pace indeed. Everyone else getting settled on in for the most part. Ryan Otis has settled into third, about 6.6 seconds back. Lana Kalisto currently holding on to about a half a second difference between himself and Joshua Chin. There is also a train of cars built up about sixth on back. Beard, Chowan, Frazier, Galvin, Kinsella, and Kerry all tucked into that train at the moment, just behind where Chin and company are.
Basically a battle for gaps instead of a battle for positions at this current moment of the race. I think the one we should be talking about is this one, because Joshua Chin has been on a mission so far with those battered tires and everybody else in the grid and chasing down Lionel Police. I don't think that 97 car will be able to do anything whatsoever. So I think the Sector 5 might have to yield the position to the private label team hype driver out of the number 93.
Gonna take some time though to get up there fully, but again, give credit to Kalisto and his run. One of the best runs he's had this season in terms of his performance.
I think it is his best run so far in the season. He hasn't had a top 5 in the season so far, only 4 top 10s. So far, what a run from that number 97 car out of the Sector 5. I think they need a booster like that so far in this race to have a driver of their team performing well so far.
One of the drivers I'm surprised about here is Mike Rasmus, who is known for being a good oval driver and more so in the stock car. Right now is 17th position. Major surprise from him so far in this car, where he's shown great speed in the various other Lionheart competitions throughout the season. Just tonight hasn't clicked for him. Remember the winner at Sonoma for Retro.
Yeah, last week winner for the Retro. I think the unfortunate problem for Rasmus on this one, I think he was one of the drivers that got caught up in the first yellow flag because he had just pitted like Joshua Chin and everybody else who kind of got caught up into it and is struggling to find himself that pace to get within top 15, top 10. But then again, we haven't hit midway portion of this race. We're about 4 laps to get towards that mark, but then again, a whole lot of races can actually unfold over here, and it can actually pull out a few spots if he plays his cards right.
Looking back at some of these air cars once more as they continue to settle on into the rhythm. Adam Frazier again. He's having an impressive day. Frazier so far just 1 top 10 on the season. Looking on par to change that with his plus 15 on the race today. Just currently struggling to close up the gap right now with a draft lock to Tony Chowan. The separation amongst them about 5 car lengths.
Yeah, and so far the best lap out of the 3 drivers was actually, I was gonna say it was his, but Chowan did a 440, whereas Fraser did a 458. So he's doing his job, but he's struggling a little bit. It's gonna be a struggle with the aero car.
Coming up to halfway, this time by for these drivers as well on the racetrack. The separation between them and Blocker, 12, 13 seconds. These drivers are 1 2/10 slower than your race leader at the moment, with how things have stretched out here at the Milwaukee Mile. There is a big cluster of cars starting to build up at one end of the speedway, you can see, and it's going to get very busy for Blocker pretty soon, with 4 cars stringed out in front of him. He's on pace to potentially reach the next group too.
Yeah, first driver right in front of him is Joe Branch, so he's right about, I would say, 2 seconds away from Joe Branch. He will be able to catch him up because Branch has been doing 23.8, so I think the next lap or so is going to be catching up to Joe Branch in P19. And then after that is going to be working himself up in the field. And one of the things is it kind of plateaued a little bit, the pace out of the drivers. Everybody doing 23 mids. I haven't seen anybody doing low 23 so far, so we've reached a plateau over here where the gaps only come out of the errors or how the worn out of the car is.
Keep in mind that Blocker has the incredible feat of not finishing outside the top 5 since last September. As in, he's raced and competed in and finished inside the top 5 positions each and every week for almost a full year. That is not easy to do as a competitor, to say the very least, even especially in this series.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement. What Adam Blocker has been doing is inhuman, in my honest opinion. You know, because you cannot have really good runs. You can have really good runs consistently, but for nearly a whole year, it demands something extra. You know, dedication, speed, skills as well, a little bit of luck. You are required to do that, but what Adam Blocker is doing is just phenomenal, really phenomenal.
Keep in mind, he does real-world work with doing his real-world commitments with IndyCar action. Will be someone that will be busy with trackside stuff as well when it comes to the real world pretty soon. So likely we'll have the situation where he may miss a couple races as well. Keep in mind, Lorenzo, so that might be a factor. And keep in mind, his championship gap will expand likely tonight unless attrition comes into play. Harrington 21st on the racetrack. That is huge.
That is really big for Harrington. That is really unfortunate because I think what also might play in this championship a little bit, I just want to give it a proper check, is that it would if Harry Bennett was actually caught up in this incident, it would have opened the door for Bennett to actually take the spot away out of Connor Harrington, but he was involved in the crash. So what that actually opens up in reality is Ryan Otis getting within the position where he might contend for that top 2 spot, the P2 and P3 spot out of Bennett and Harrington. Because right now he's in P3, and for Otis, I think you are within the dreamland so far.
He's come a long way learning this car, to say the very least, over the season. As talked about earlier on in the campaign, new to the DeLauro IR18, learned a lot as the season has progressed. Things getting a little bit spicy now in the battle going on for 7th. Fraser currently lockstep with Shawan, waiting for an opportunity to pounce with some cars. They're having a pass in front. Tyler Graff, Henry Bennett is the traffic in front of them.
Yeah, and is that attrition, you know, right in the middle of the pack out of what you try to do and what lines you pick up to be most effective? It is, you know, you can see Bennett on the outside line letting everybody go by, and Adam Fraser will be able to close up the gap to Tony Shawan, but it's not going to be enough for that number 17 car to make the overtake.
Freeway again with the race traffic, able to cut on through. And we are approaching the pit window for our next stop. It is looking like it's a 2-stopper to the end from this point forward, depending on the time of the caution flag here. So we'll have to see how things play out for how these drivers like to come in. It's going to be the nerve-wracking part. Is you don't want to end up in the same situation as last time, where you go into the pit lane and somebody snaps around.
Yeah, you really don't, especially when they are about 5 or 6 laps, at least 5 laps in the stint to get in within pit lane. I think Joshua Chin has a little bit longer than that because he has better fuel than everybody else. But it's going to be key. You really don't want to make a fumble up your pit entry, as now Kinsella gets blocked out by Graff on the outside, and now we're seeing the first driver going to the pit lane will be Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Indication coming over the radio indeed from the 14 machine, as ducking down is Nunez, smoking up the tires that time to go into the pit lane. So our window is open and the floodgates expected to start to pop up. By the way, that is Connor Harrington, who is just now let by Mike Rigney, who is starting to close with Blocker having traffic in front. He's closed the gap to under 2.5 seconds. So it is starting to chip away with the battle for 12th on back in front of Blocker still.
Yeah, the consistency out of Rigney on the last few laps was really good, especially lap 113. where Ashley did a 23.3 and Blocker did a 23.7. So those 0.4 of a second played huge on the 00 driver to get closer, and he's getting closer. The gap is under 2 seconds. So Rigney actually has a really good contender shot to get closer to Blocker, maybe before he comes into the pit lane, and then just put down the strategy into the pit lane and get even closer to that number 1 car.
That strategy call could be vital, and absolutely. It's going to be the matter, though, of, well, where do the cars come out? 83 laps to go. The lead is now down to 1.6 seconds. You can see that clean track starting to help chip away the gap. He's gaining a 10th a corner right now, Rigney is, as Blocker's starting to make the charge on the lap traffic.
You know what I'm thinking a little bit here? What Blocker probably has done. You know, I know he's playing conservative, as I just heard Adam Frazier is about to go into the pit lane. As you know, he's trying to save that gauge of fuel, trying to stretch himself up to the point that Rigney, he might come alongside Rigney and won't lose the lap in it. But now the problem is for Rigney, how Rigney is going to be aggressive with it. But I think Rigney just answered my question. He's into the pit lane.
So Rigney is the one who blanks first with the undercut. That's going to be huge. The fall off this time has been a bit more steeper on the racetrack, an extra couple tenths per second. He's now reached his box. Blocker try and counter at the end of the lane. Yes, indeed, he is that blue car, top right, who's just locked up his brakes. Rigney off and away with a lone stop of 9 seconds.
What would be cool to see is actually that undercut from Rigney actually is going to work out, because I think he realized that he probably would have lost time going against the drivers right ahead of him with traffic. So I can't wait to see as Blocker's not at the pit lane and Rigney's just out of turn 4.
Off away is Blocker. Rigney still trying to pass the flag stand. And for Blocker, he'll actually come out ahead with a bit of an advantage. All the way into turn 3, he gained a lot of time, that pit stop entry, I believe, to be able to pick up this amount of time on the track.
You're just trying to look over here about Rigney. How bad was, I'm not going to say how bad was the pit stop. 26.9 was Rigney, but Adam Blocker, what a pit stop. A second faster. A second and a half faster than what Rigney did.
Rigney lost at least a second in the lane itself for that to come into play, Lorenzo. So now that definitely is going to hurt him in terms of stopwatch. The differential between them, almost 5 seconds on the racetrack.
It's downrightly absurd. I think the one thing that might play out in his favor is that he got a lap traffic blocker. He might lose a little bit of time here, which might work in Rigney's favor. But then again, the damage has been done. What a pit stop from Adam Blocker again.
Joshua Chin off and away. He's completed his service. He went long on his respective stint. So it took a bit of a shorter stop in the box. About 8.1 seconds. The last of the drivers yet to pit are Jason Galvin, Andrew Kinsella, Jason Brophy, Samuel Ryman. Those drivers expected to come in fairly soon for their scheduled service. Brophy's indicated he wants to come in.
Yeah, I think it was just do 60 laps for Brophy. So the drivers haven't pitted yet. RP1 and 2, Galvin and Kinsella, 61 laps for Galvin and Kinsella respectively. So they're due to come to the pit lane anytime now.
Keep in mind those are the drivers indeed who have pit last caution flag to be able to add extra fuel into the car. And this is a call where you need this to work out, at least in my opinion, Lorenzo, if you want to be able to cycle properly for the lead lap as well, though, to potentially pin some drivers a lap down to give yourself a valuable points position.
I agree. You know, it's it's one of those intriguing strategy calls where you come to the pit lane and where you want to stand off in the rest of the field, right? Especially if you're battling for key positions in the point standing. I'm not talking about team standings, but driver standings, right? And if you want to try to stand yourself as fast as you can to the pit range or the fuel range, or you want to try to go for that undercut and then cut it off on the lead or something like that. So it's those interesting strategy calls that I like to see out of these drivers that fumble up the field and make the grid a little bit more exciting.
Bit of smoke being kicked up in turn 2 as one driver went sideways on the cold tires. Jason Brophy nearly looped it in the corner and is having a hard time stabilizing his car. He's just up the road from these machines you see on screen. So we stay green, but the neon yellowish green car nearly had a disastrous sequence also. Well, Brophy coming off an 18-second pit stop. He says now on the radio he is hurt, so Brophy's got a problem. So Brophy not looking like he's handling well at all right now.
I really want to say he might have some lingering issues from that Connor Harrington issue he had on the second yellow flag that hasn't fully repaired it, but it's unfortunate to see Brophy, dropping back ever so slightly in this field with these issues. And again, that is only opening the door, like 2 doors to the Adrenaline Motorsports drive, because their drivers are up in the front and they will be cycling, even though they get cycled back a few spots back after the pit stops. What Kinsella and Joe Branch and Brian Carey have been doing is nothing short of amazing, keeping the private label team hype honest.
Into the pit lane this time, Jason Galvin, Andrew Kinsella. That will put a close to this chapter of that window. The interesting mark is it comes at 67 laps to go. Those drivers were able to stretch it 67, 68 laps, but it's Adam Blocker who is in the race lead here at the Milwaukee Mile.
Yeah, and one thing we should be looking as well over here is that Rigney actually closing the gap. It's little by little, but on the last lap, actually, Blocker has managed to fight back as we've seen both Galvin and Kinsella coming together out of the pit lane.
Keep in mind, these drivers 1 lap down with the timing of their pit stops. So an interesting call, but they will, on the bright side, have the freshest tires on the track. 8 cars are now in the lead lap. It involves this battle as well. Kalisto and Chin side by side. Ricky Harding's being dirty air in front. Chin trying to keep him up on the higher groove. Able to make the pass going through turns 3 and 4. So private label team hype. Still good representation up on the front with Chin.
Yeah, using those 11 lap tire thin cars, so in his advantage against Lionel Kalisto. So the best private label team hype driver putting that pressure so far.
More coverage of the Buttkicker 200 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series continues right after these messages. You're watching RaceSpot TV live from the virtual Milwaukee Mile. Welcome back to RaceSpot TV's coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series and the Buttkicker 200 at the virtual Milwaukee Mile. I'm Justin Prince alongside with Boots and Irish Rinser Bonder with Arjuna Kankipati in the director's seat for this evening's action. For those just tuning in, Adam Blocker currently leads by 4 seconds. After what's been a dominant performance by him, he's led a majority of the laps. He took the lead for the first time in lap 3. He's been able to run away since then. Mike Rickney, Ryan Otis currently amongst the cars, scrapping for second, with Joshua Chin and Lionel Callisto scrapping for 4th position as well on the track. Renzo, it's been an impressive race so far. For Adam Blocker, can he keep it up is the big question, especially with the pace he's been able to settle down in clean space.
Yeah, his pace on clean air has been nothing short of outstanding so far. He dropped off a little bit with traffic and allowed Rigney to come closer and closer, up to nearly a second and a half out of the number 1 car. But what Blocker did in the pit lane is just phenomenal. You can see now Kinsella and Galvin taking their laps back out of Otis and Rigney. So the battle for P2 will be reignited shortly over here, because Otis has been on a charge lately in the past 3 or 4 laps. So I want to see how Rigney is going to react to this so far. But in overall, really good race so far.
The interesting thing again is Jason Galvin and Andrew Kinsella both made it to 67 laps to go. Our fuel window estimates were about 55. Do you think they can stretch it to get at least close to that mark and put themselves in a spot where if there was a late stage caution, they're in the driver's seat?
It will take a little bit of fairy dust and luck to get within contendership positions. They can do it, but it will require a little bit of luck for them to get closer, because if we're under green all the way, they're going to be basically a lap back. Even though they might be able to get themselves back within lead lap, they're still going to be far behind in comparison to the top 3.
Those two actually squabbling a little bit for position as well, with Galvin on the inside, Kinsella on the outside, bending near contact as Kinsella goes up the track, and now Andrew Kinsella has some scrapes on his left front wing. That could have been much more bigger in that sequence, and now will cost Kinsella some time to see if he has to deal with major damage from that scrape.
But what, I don't know if it is like bothering me or something of the nature. What kind of like intrigues me is why they battling so. I know they are on opposite sides of in terms of team standings, and we know Adrenaline Motorsports Reddit the objective at the end of the championship. But why they're battling so hard, knowing they have better tires than the rest of the grading? They know they can make up the ground on everybody else on strategy. They're gonna have to show up a bit for less, even though they might be a lap down. Or why waste your tires this early on in the stint?
It's a good question, and you have to wonder what's going through their minds right now in terms of how they want this to play out. The only thing I can think of is Kinsella feels maybe you'd have to think he could be quicker at this point, do you think?
Maybe. It's a possibility.
There's a lot of possibilities of what is going through the minds of these drivers right now. Keep in mind, Brian Carey is for position 2. Right in front of him. This is for 9th. That Galvin is diving underneath of him for. So move Jason Galvin up 1 more spot. What a bit of a swerve that time for Brian Carey.
Yeah, and looking a little bit far, a little bit behind, Kinsella got into a very heated entry in turn number 3, brushed off the rear tires a little bit. So, but it's going to be enough to actually get closer to his teammate of Brian Carey and make the move up 1 spot, get into the top 10.
Tony Shalvin is also within 1 second of all this. He is that car seen just up the road. You look at your biggest movers and shakers. Plus 16 for Callisto and Frazier. Plus 14 for Carey after having to start back from end of the longest line penalty. Plus 10 for Samuel Ryman. Plus 8, Jason Galvin. Biggest droppers through the field so far that are still active. Connor Harrington -9. Kinsella -7. Biggest drop overall, Matt Taylor -19. But things are starting to get a bit intriguing with Rigney and Otis. They're putting up some more times now. 45 laps to go. They're still butting together, but there is one driver who wants to say hello to them. It's Joshua Chin, the king of chins, wants to say hello.
Yeah, but the last lap, actually, Otis was slightly better than Joshua Chin, faster by 38 hundredths of a second than the king of chins actually has done in the previous lap. But we have to take account that Chin has 3 laps better in tires than both drivers in this top 3. So if the private label team height driver wants to contend a little bit, get a little more aggressive than the 2 drivers, he has the rubber to make up for it if so desires.
Keep in mind, Chin in all this has been a little bit fresher rubber by about 4 laps. Closed up 3/10 or so last time by Chin did, with the 23.3 to Otis and Rigney's is 6 is in the 23-second bracket. Here's a look at the map one more time. And this 1 mile facility, a lot of history over its time in motorsports. Talked about earlier on, the oldest operating motor speedway in the world, hosting at least one auto race every year since 1903, except during this involvement in World War II. It was actually a dirt track at one point and was paved in 1954. So a lot of history is coming into play here at Wisconsin State Fair Park. Coming up to 40 laps to go this time by. The battle starts to spread out a little bit. Keep in mind as well, Lorenzo, it's going to be important for the championship itself for Chin to try and close in and catch up to Otis here.
Yeah, their gap actually stands about 2 points from one driver to another in this championship. 382 for Ryan Otis, and Joshua Chin, after the fumble in the 500, dropped back to 380. Dropped 2 spots. He was P3 in the championship, allowed Bennett and Otis to steal his thunder. So I think the king of chins will look to be more aggressive than both drivers and get that P4 spot back out of Ryan Otis in the number 95 car for the Synergy Motorsports squad.
Of note, one driver is just taking a final pit stop. Matt Houston, with a different strategy, has just ducked in the 99. Luis Gonzalez Nunez indicated he's also planning to come in. And Joshua Chin is coming in.
Okay.
Interesting call from Chin. And we'll have to see how this works out here, Lorenzo.
Yeah, I think Chin has listened to our producer, Arjuna Kankipati, saying that the undercut might be really good over here. Can't wait to see it.
Looking like splitting up just about near dead even up the middle with the laps remaining with that stint. The big question mark is, will that undercut work? We'll have to see, and that's going to take at least 20 laps or so minimum to find out, because here's the thing, he's going to have a bit of a heavier car compared to some of the others right now who can then take light fuel later on in this race.
I think the key for Joshua Chin now is how he navigates going through Brian Carey, Tony Shaw, and Andrew Kinsella, Jason Galvin, and Adam Frazier right before they pit, because they ride about on between 43 to 34 laps within their stints. So they can pit anywhere now. So it is up to Chin to be aggressive and try to move up the field, as I'm seeing him be a little bit aggressive on Brian Carey right now as he moves up the first spot.
Here's the big thing too, on top of things, you don't want to burn up your stuff too quickly in terms of your tires, because on the older tires, it's going to make it much harder to defend to close off the stint.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be complicated, especially with the tires being brushed off, trying to find other people as he gets into Ryan Otis right now, as we see now this battle between 5th and 6th of Jason Galvin, Adam Frazier, Andrew Kinsella, and Tony Shaw getting closer. So it's going to be interesting to see how Chin's tires will be when everybody else pits in about 10, 20 laps.
Now, seeing Chin try and pass by the second place driver in Rigney, who is now 7 seconds behind Blocker, keep in mind. But it's going to take some luck for some of those other drivers we talked about, like Galvin and Kinsella as well. At the very least, we know one thing for sure here, Lorenzo. Chin will likely go in front of some competitors, including potentially maybe inside the top 3 even. But is it going to be enough to be able to undercut Blocker?
I don't think it's enough to cut Blocker specifically. I don't think it's enough. Ooh. And I nearly saw a touch between Kinsella and Chin on turn number 2. As we're looking into Chin, as we see Otis coming into the pit lane. So with the first guy in the top 3, top 5 coming into the pit lane for his final service of the day.
And it comes at 30 to go indeed. Coming up to 29 to go. A quick stop for Otis. 8.5 seconds. Outside behind Jason Galvin, Andrew Kinsella, Tony Schowen, and Brian Carey on the racetrack. All of those drivers are much older tires right now. Chin right now has already gotten himself within 3 seconds or so of the race leader in Blocker.
And what's been really good for Chin in this race so far, in this final stint, he hasn't gone, as we see now, Kinsella and other drivers coming to pit lane, and that's Tony Schowen doing their final service. But then again, coming back to Chin, what has been good for him is that he got no strong gap position, trying to fight for a position on turn number 1 and 3, so he's getting away with it pretty easily. And I think he actually got on Ryan Otis a really good, considerable gap that Otis needs to work on right now.
Worth noting that Andrew Kinsella has backed out of his call. Adam Blocker is in, and he lost a lot of time locking up the brakes to get himself to speed limit. He nearly hit the barrels, and now we'll have to see if he loses too much time here from this sequence. Look at how much smoke he kicks up.
Whew.
He dropped down to he was under 30 miles an hour, keep in mind on that.
Yeah, but got no penalty, so it was right on the margin as he comes out of the pit lane. Question is where Rigney comes. He actually fires back Rigney into the pit lane right now.
And he'll need to be able to pick up time here in this entry to have any sort of shot here. Keep in mind, Joshua Chin is already zipping his way around the racetrack. Chin has cycled behind Blocker. You see on your mini-map. Chin, at the very least, has cycled his way big time by Rigney and several others. But now, it's the matter of will that hold for Chin. As a new fastest lap, Lionel Kalisto, presented by ATVO.
And the gap that separates Blocker and Rigney is just too large for actually Rigney to get close by. I think there's right about 7 seconds that separates Rigney and Blocker. I think the thing that we need to be looking on is Chin and how Blocker works his tires out, because even though Chin looks fast here, we have to look back where Blocker's actually doing on his first few laps out of the tires. 22.6 his first lap.
Blackbeard is ducked in this time by. Now you see Otis cycled in front of Galvin. And Rigney lost a lot of time again in his pit stop sequence, especially in the box itself. One of the longest times in the box of the evening for Rigney. And just as we said, the fast lap went to Kalisto. Adam Blocker takes his fast lap back in the race lead, which is only 3 seconds between him and Chin, with 8 cars on the lead lap currently.
Just insane what Blocker has been doing, and he's opening up the gap quite considerably on Joshua Chin. I think we need to look at 95 right now with about 22 to go, because Joshua Chin might be within some considerable danger if Otis actually puts some really fast laps with that tire. He has 9 laps in, Chin 16 laps in, so that gap that he has to Otis and to Lisa and Rigney will be considerable in the final maybe 10, 15 laps of this race.
going to be very, very important. Rigney has gotten himself into a fight with Callisto. By the way, the time difference, almost 0.4 of a second quicker. Otis to Chin.
I think the biggest issue for Otis is that he has Ricky Harding right in front of him. Even though Ricky actually did a 22.9 last lap, it is lap traffic. You know how Otis navigates through this and how Ricky realizes he has a faster car. He has like one of the top 3 right in front of him. How he clears away Otis will be key for Otis to make up that ground.
Keep in mind for Otis as well, looking for one of his best finishes on an oval this season. He's been known for his skills on the road courses this campaign for his top 5s.
True.
Looking for what would be one of his first top 5s on the oval side this season. Gap between him and Chin now to almost 2 seconds as some of the air on boards. This is Rigney in the midst of a fight with Lionel Callisto. This is the Buttkicker on board.
4 laps separate in terms of pay, in terms of tires. Rigney and Callisto. Callisto 11 laps, Rigney 8 laps in his 10. So will be complicated for Callisto to make those moves, especially with that car right ahead of him, which is Tony Schauman right now. He's far back, 10th place, but it plays into effect for Callisto to get that air wash, and that brings Rigney closer and closer.
Rigney definitely wanting the chance to have one of his best finishes all season here. It's going to take some effort, though, to be able to make this move. They also have traffic, keep in mind, Tony Schauman in front of them as well. Just can't seem to close up the gap quite yet to be able to fully maximize the opportunity here to make the move on the slightly fresher tires.
Absolutely, and I think that air wash plays a little bit into effect from Tony Schauman. You know, he's sharing the air, the dirty air, and even though he might be on a very wider line, there is still some air wash effect that you can actually get from the car that is ahead of you, especially if you are in a 3-car train in these short ovals, which affects your performance, make the car a little bit understeery during mid-corner, and you have to kind of adjust your throttling to try to maximize the efficiency out of the car without burning the tires way too much.
That tire wear, so all very vital to make sure you have that here at the Milwaukee Mile. As now the traffic is showing moving up to the high side as the battle starts to stall out a little bit here. Same can be said for the battle for second, with Ryan Otis now reaching a plateau of the 23.2s to Chin's tires as well up the road.
Well, he has Ricky Harding and Samuel Ryman right in front of him, so that's what might be playing to the factor of the King of Chins right now. So he got a little bit of air to breathe, but he cannot sleep for 1 second, because if he sleeps, Ryan Otis will be in his wing fighting for that P2 spot.
Definitely can't afford to make any major mistakes. There was a little bit of a scrape that time. Not able to take advantage of anyone around. They do have Kinsella providing pressure behind it, Adam Frazier. And that's going to be tough too, is now you have the drivers on the most freshest tires going to also want to come on through as well. That's going to be a bit frustrating for some of these competitors. All of this is, while Adam Blocker takes 10 to go here at the Milwaukee Mile and looking to put himself in the record books once more.
4-peat. Would have imagined driving. 3-peat is already hard enough, but 4-peat? Please, it's... I don't think even in a real-life IndyCar they managed to get 4 peats this easily, like Adam Blocker has been able to do.
Right now, just riding behind Jason Galvin at the moment on the Espo Designs on board. And keep in mind, in this series, no one has won 4 consecutive times in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. He's done it twice, or he's won 3 in a row. but is looking to put himself in that mark where no one has ever gone before, all with different challenges along the way. You include the Worldwide Technology Raceway, Indianapolis Road Course, Indianapolis, and the Milwaukee Mile, 4 different types of tracks that are not all in one the same, Lorenzo.
No, absolutely not. You win in a super speed, you win in you can get like a mile and a quarter for the Worldwide Technology Tech Raceway, and you got the mile over here. So in the short, you got 2 wins in short ovals, 1 win in the road course, and 1 win in the big one in the 500. So what a performance for that back to back for Adam Blocker, as we've seen Jason Galvin trying to move up the field. A really good running out of Jason Galvin. He's been quiet so far for that thumbs up cancer down car. But what a performance out of the already one-time winner here at the Milwaukee Mile.
And he's definitely trying to make it to the end. This is exactly what we talked about with Galvin, by the way, is can he make it on the fuel? He is currently 7 laps past the mark and has already lost a lap. It'd still be a decent finish if Galvin could get the job done here.
And running the high line, trying to conserve as much fuel as he can possibly can. And I think I even saw him use the clutch into the entry of turn number 1 at one point. So even lifting the car as max as you can and going 4th gear, and you can see like just cruising the car slowly out of turn number 1 and 2 and short shifting every single time.
Yep. You see that in the circle. Try to keep those revs down. All the way down to 3rd gear, in fact, here. I don't know if he can make it here. This is a really aggressive fuel saving here on Galvin's part. Kinsella is already a couple seconds behind to take away that spot if this continues.
Just insane. That's a commitment. I wouldn't be able to go this far in the race with that kind of commitment. But I think I really want to see him do well, but he might fall short with 1 to go in a little bit.
The gap between 2nd and 3rd has stabilized, meanwhile, to 3 seconds, the differential between Chin and Otis. But this is all coming as the white flag is out. The final lap is out for the Buttkicker 200, and it's been a clinic for Adam Blocker all night long. Took the lead from the early onset and ran away with it. Led by as much as 7 seconds. And now he does something that has never been done before in this series. For the 4th consecutive race, Adam Blocker is a winner in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. He wins the Buttkicker 200. Absolutely incredible from Blocker as he moves himself alone in the history books. The first 4-time in a row winner in series history. Renzo, impressive to say the very least from Blocker to be able to get this job done tonight.
Yeah, what a job done from Adam Blocker. Untouchable today. And I think another thing we can actually put in the records over here, this is the largest gap he actually had to 2nd place in this race. Largest one was back in season 3 when Danny Roper won by 5.7 seconds on Ian Adams. Right now he won by 6.1 seconds on Joshua Chin, but what a performance out of Adam Blocker. And let me give props to Lion Coliso for last lap defense on Mike Rigney, because he got loose out of 4 and managed to hold off at the 2 turns in the final lap.
Incredible to say the very least with Galvin as well at 12th position. By the way, Blocker 184 of the 200 laps go his direction, and as well, this is the least amount of caution seen in a race for tonight. Previous lowest mark was season 5 with 4. With that, it's time to get towards your race results presented by Carnox, with Adam Blocker taking the checker flag by 6.1 seconds. Joshua Chin, Ryan Otis, Lionel Colisto, your top 4 with Mike Rigney, the last driver on the lead lap, with 5 competitors who have that honor to say so. Brian Beard, Andrew Kinsella, Adam Frazier, Tony Shaw, and Brian Carey, your top 10 on the board. Then, just outside the top 10, Mike Rasmus, Jason Gowan, who was able to make it to the checker flag in 12th. Matt Houston, Samuel Ryman, Ricky Harden, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, Tyler Graff, Jason Brophy, along with Joe Branch and Connor Harrington. The rest of the field, Richie Hearn, Henry Bennett, Stephen Larkamp, Aaron Morgan, Matt Taylor, and Chris Fowler all suffered major troubles. Throughout today's race, they finished several dozen laps down. That brings us into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. And drivers continuing their celebrations as we get ready to head towards HyperX victory lane. What was an impressive victory once more for Blocker. 4 consecutive is something that can be difficult to get the job done for. Something that may not get to that mark in a while again, especially with how difficult it was just for some drivers to get into the 2-in-a-row mark. In the 3-in-a-row mark, with Blocker being that driver who did it twice, now the first one who does it 4. Adam Blocker now joins us from HyperX Victory Lane. And Adam, first things first, a dominant pace from you tonight. How did you do it to keep up that consistent mark all race long?
Man, I'm exhausted. My hands are sore because, when you do, 130 or something green laps at Milwaukee, it just takes a toll on you, because you're just like constantly cornering. And with this setup tonight, you were basically like counter steering on the way in and the way out of every corner. So it was a lot of hard work, for sure. But yeah, and especially with all the traffic and everything, it got pretty hairy a couple points. But yeah, I don't know. I've always liked Milwaukee. I've never gotten a win here in this series, so really happy to finally do that. And obviously 4 in a row is really cool. That's something that I didn't ever think I would be able to do, because it's just so hard to put together a string of winning on a big oval, short oval, and a road course, which is pretty much what you have to do to win 4 in a row. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, really was hoping to win Milwaukee, and I did. So yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, it's definitely also tough, because I was struggling with a little bit of computer issues. Like I was getting a little bit of like stuttering toward the end of the race. Yeah, and like on pit in the last time, I had a little bit of a screen lockup, so I overshot pit in, but thankfully I overslowed after the cones to make sure I didn't get a penalty.
That explains the major lockup in that situation. And now, you mentioned how difficult it is to get yourself in the situation to win 4 in a row. How do you try and keep this momentum up is a big question mark, because it can be very difficult to get 5 in a row as well.
Well, I think if I'm ever going to have a chance to do it, it's now, because I don't think I'll ever, win 4 in a row again. So now is probably the only chance to do that. But yeah, Silverstone's going to be tough. A lot of other guys are fast on road courses, and, it's not going to be easy at all. Just going to be looking for another solid result. Obviously tonight with some of my contenders, like Connor and Henry having issues, that kind of makes it a little bit easier in the points, but at the same time, people like Chin, even though he started in the back, had a great drive all the way up through the field. So, at the same time, there's still, plenty of contenders, and yeah, just going to look forward to doing top 5s every race.
I was about to ask about the championship situation indeed there, and how do you try and keep that focus now up, because we're approaching already midway through the campaign, and it's been an interesting campaign to say the very least for you. Very successful, 5 total victories, believe on the trot.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I didn't expect to. Last year I only won 2, so pretty crazy to win 5 already at this point. But yeah, really just want to thank everybody on the team for helping out with strategy and everything. Like I know Brian called for me that Chin was on a big undercut there, and that helped me get out in front of him, kind of make it easy. And yeah, and everybody else was just doing field numbers and kind of making it easy when I was lapping them. So, it was really good. And I also just want to thank everybody in the league for making that go green. Only 2 cautions at Milwaukee with that setup is a pretty big testament to the league. So, yeah, definitely a good race for everybody.
Congratulations once again on the run, Adam.
Thanks.
Adam Blocker coming away with the victory tonight. Once again, A 184 of 200 lead lap advantage for Blocker for the night. King of Chins, Joshua Chin, now joins us in second spot, and it was an up and down day for you, Josh. First things first, talk about the uppity part.
Yeah, the last 2-3 runs were really good, just kind of carving through. I got lucky with the wreck that took Connor and Jason out of the race and got some spots out of it, and was able to just kind of work my way from there. Just a smooth, steady race after that. Wish I had messed up qualifying for the first caution that came out, because I think it might have been a shot to win if not for either of those. But I can't complain with second after how the night looked like it was going to start.
I was about to ask, how difficult is it to plan out a strategy knowing that it's the Milwaukee Mile, and how difficult things can be here when it comes to the attrition? Tonight was a different case where it was just 2 caution flags, 130 laps in a row, went green. Yeah,
I wasn't expecting the first caution to be the same as the last short oval we were on during a pit cycle, but I guess it just happens to work out that way sometimes. Yeah, overall, qualifying was a mess. We all kind of got caught off guard by it, and I think even the guys up front kind of got caught out. We were probably a 10th and a half. Those guys were 10th and a half off their fast laps in practice. So I don't really know what changed with the track, but we all kind of slowed down, and all 3 of us at Private Label Team Hype went down in the turn 1, and it pitched sideways, and we were not ready for it to do that as much as it did.
Now, when it comes to the next race, and Blocker touched on it a little bit, it's going to be an intriguing one because it's Silverstone up next. Your thoughts on going to an intriguing road course for the Graphics Grand Prix of Silverstone?
I think it's going to be another very track position crucial race. Obviously there's long straightaways and you get draft, but there's a lot of aero sensitive corners and you get a lot of aero push, especially after 5-6 laps, and maybe the tire strategy will offset that a little bit, and it'll be a little bit easier to run on primaries behind someone with the extra looseness they give, but it's still going to be a big challenge running in traffic, and I think anyone that gets out front is going to kind of eventually run away, especially after the first pit cycle.
See how things play out then. Congratulations to run tonight, Josh. That's Joshua Chin. Once again, second place tonight. Started in 14th up and down the board. But Ryan Otis started on the pole. His first pole of the season. And was a consistent staple inside the top 5. He now joins us in the broadcast booth. Ryan, first things first. How are you feeling about your run this evening?
Oh, I'm pretty happy with it. That's I was actually shocked to get pole. I didn't expect that. So I was too conservative with my settings with the bar and everything, because I hadn't really done fresh tires at race start kind of situation in clean air before. So I just didn't plan for it and just got eaten up pretty fast by Adam. But no, I'm thrilled to keep it on the podium. Yeah, that was a big relief. I thought this was going to be, a bit of a caution fest, but man, everybody was so clean. It ended up being a great race.
And the interesting thing too is how you've come along with this season and learning this car. You talked earlier in the season about how you wanted to and had to learn about what you need to do with this car. This is one of your best finishes on an oval this season. How do you feel that's now come along with now getting some momentum here on the oval side, on top of the road course side?
Oh, I'm feeling much better. I really struggled to drive the car. The first few races just didn't seem to click with it. And you got in-car controls here, and so it seemed like no matter what setting I chose, it was the wrong setting. And so I just couldn't come to grips with driving the car and being comfortable with it. So I felt like I've made a ton of progress over the last few races. I kind of made a bad strategy call in our last race and kind of burned myself, but I felt like I at least had good pace. So now I'm super thrilled with it, and I got to give a big shout out to the team. Brian Beard has helped me a lot with just trying to figure out car settings and how to get the most out of the car over a long run. So it's been a great help.
Sounds like it indeed. Now, the next race goes back road course racing to Silverstone Circuit. Your thoughts on Silverstone?
Oh, I like Silverstone. It's a fun track. I've never driven the IndyCar there, so I'm really looking forward to it. I have to get in plenty of practice. No, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a ton of fun. So yeah, I think it's gonna be great.
Congratulations once again on the run tonight, Ryan. Let you get back to your team.
Yeah, thanks guys.
That's Ryan Otis once again with his best finish of the season on an oval in third. Now, Lorenzo, your final thoughts on how things played out as we approach Silverstone, which is going to be a challenging road course for our drivers.
Yeah, this was a really good race, far better than what I expected to run out, and I can't wait to see what Silverstone will bring, because I think it will catch some of these drivers off guard, because how difficult Silverstone is a track that demands practice, especially the Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel section, which is very tricky to get within the right setup. But I think Shin said it the proper thing. You know, track position will be important. Whoever gets in front might get a really good advantage coming to the pit lane. Can't wait to see what will happen in about 2 weeks' time.
I'm curious to see what happens at Silverstone as well on July the 28th. But I'd like to take the time to thank the presenting sponsors for this series. First with Buttkicker. For sim racers, the Buttkicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bring more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to your in-game audio, you can feel the track like you've never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use promo code LINE2021 for 20% off orders. HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com. Don't forget to use the promo code LINEHRT15 for 15% off orders. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. Minus 273 is their premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel. And it's not just those names, but many more and all the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series that get the job done. To find out more about them, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also find out more information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body runs. Lots more Lionheart competition to follow along with. To follow along with said action, be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series. ESTV has your esports needs, while RaceSpot has your V Motorsports needs covered. Be sure to follow along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more. Be sure to hit the YouTube button as well as hit the notification bell as well to keep up with your favorite sim action that we all get to cover. And don't forget, the Speedway Series heads over to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 500 miles. The Sim Racing Studio 500 takes place once more this Sunday. Coverage starts at approximately 3 p.m. Eastern Time. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage of the Buttkicker 200 at the Milwaukee Mile for the Lionheart IndyCar Series. We'll see you next time when the Speedway Series heads to the Brickyard to determine who can win in 500 miles of action. Good night.